Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Orphaned Secrets. Episode 8. Chapter 45. Griffin's POV. The days I got to spend next to Xandra blurred into weeks and then months. In the blink of an eye, 3 months flew by just like that. Life now looked so different than it did back then. The night of the Alpha ceremony did not go as planned, but the good thing was no one died that night. We weren't able to come up with a solid plan in the amount of time that we had, so Richard, being the smart man that he is, decided to pull the plug on the ceremony. All of the elders and visiting alphas agreed that it would be the best course of action to prevent the attack, and it worked. Whoever the mole was must have reached out to Kellen and told him the ceremony was cancelled. Everyone agreed that until the Pattersons were found, the transfer of power for Golden Moon would be postponed. However, that didn't stop me and Xandra from finally mating and marking each other, nor did it stop Richard from giving me the Alpha TLE. Everything was word of mouth that I was now the Alpha of Golden Moon. The same went for Brent being Beta and Mav Kellenk being the Gamma. The pack was informed of the changes but was kept in the dark as to why the ceremony was cancelled. We didn't need to warn the mole that we were onto them. We just told everyone it was due to undisclosable reasons. Although it took another week after the fact before Xandra and I made our bond whole, I was glad it did, because let me tell you, it was the most magical night that either one of us ever had. I also kept my promise to her. I made her feel so much pleasure that night, for a short while before she got used, the word alone made her flush bright tomato red, and she would have to fan herself to calm down. She also lost her voice that night. Now, we have X as often as she wants it. I would never say no to her. I would drop everything I was doing the moment her eyes turned black in desire. Xandra became a freak in the sheets, and I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Our first time together still felt like yesterday. I smirked to myself as I sat in my office and thought about it for the millionth time. FL Kale Thornwood back. Xandra, are you in here? I called out to her as I opened our bedroom door. In the bathroom, she yelled back. It was getting late, and I had just finished another day and night-long meetings with Richard, the guys, and a few neighboring alphas which included Jasper. The search for Kellen and his family were never-ending. We put out feelers all over, and Jasper had Jason's father use his resources to try and track them down. Unfortunately, every time we thought we had a lead, it would go cold instantly. How was the meeting? She asked from the bathroom. Long and tiring. Let me tell you, baby. I can't wait. I'm going to have an aneurysm with the amount of stress this has put on me. I answered and laid back on the bed, closing my eyes. I heard the bathroom door open, and Xandra's scent filled my senses. Well, maybe there's something I can do to help with that, she suggested in a very seductive voice. I opened my eyes and turned my head towards the bathroom door. My eyes widened in surprise, and I slowly sat up straight. Xandra, what are you wearing? I gulped. Do you like it? She asked with a sensual smile. I nodded my head. She had on a white two-piece lingerie set. Wait, what are you doing? Something I know you've been wanting. Before I could protest, her mouth was on me, and my eyes slammed shut. KK, was all I could muster out as she worked her mouth, tongue, and hand. I put my hands behind my head, interlocked my fingers, and let my not-so-prude Luna have her way with me. Chapter 46. Alexa's POV. Alexa, please. Brent begged me. That's mistress to you. I shouted and whipped him with his belt. 3 whole months have passed since everything went to SHT. All of the ceremonies have been postponed ever since news of our birth father's survival was out. Though the festivities were pushed back, that didn't stop Brent from mating with me. If anything, it drove him to do it faster than I would have liked. His anger, rage, and the product of learning Cale Thornwood being alive may have forced his hand. In his mind, he figured that marking me faster meant he would be able to keep me safer. The last thing he wanted was Kellen trying to lay a claim on me and Xandra. Griffin and Xandra waited until the week after. Brent, on the other hand, waited 1 day. Brent got the ball rolling by introducing me, so I decided to do a little research of my own on the internet. I remembered Diana back at Blue Lake was always talking about P*RN, and how it could help girls learn new skills. While Brent was out greeting guests with Griffin and Richard that day, I was discreetly looking for P*pornographic videos on the internet before going to Xandra's room to get ready. At least, I thought it was discreet. Turns out there was something called a history tab. Luckily, Brent didn't find out until after we had mated, and let me tell you, what I was able to teach myself in those few hours really helped. Not only did I learn to do better hand jobs, but I also learned a few other things that really piqued my interest. The night we mated for the first time was one I would never forget, mostly because I ended up doing things to him that he never expected me to do. FL Cale Thornwood back. Brent. Slow down. You promised we would take our time. I protested as he threw me on the bed. Alexa, that would be the case if Kellen and that diaper stain of a wolf, Cale Thornwood Patterson, were dead and buried 6 feet under. But they're not. They're out there, and if Kellen finds out that you and Xandra are his long-lost daughters, there's no telling what he would do, he shouted at me. I flinched at his words. I'm sorry, baby, I didn't mean to yell at you. I sat up and edged myself to the side of the bed where he was standing. I pulled on his hand so he would sit next to me. Brent, why would mating faster change any of that? It wouldn't, but it would allow me to keep tabs on you. If by some awful turn of events, you and Xandra were taken, us being fully mated and bonded would allow me to know what you're feeling. I would at least be able to tell that you're alive. Alive? You don't actually think Kellen would hurt us, do you? I don't think he would, but Cale Thornwood's mom might, or even Tessa. Why? Why? Are you serious? Alexa, you and your sister are the product of an affair that Kellen had with Sarin's mom. Actually, an affair would constitute both parties consenting. Kellen violated Sarin's mom and, in turn, created you and your sister. Okay. Alexa, according to Richard, Kellen was obsessed with Sarin's mom. And I mean obsessed. She was a rarity back then, being a true female alpha. Apparently, a lot of unmated males, especially other alphas, wanted to take her as their chosen mate, including Kellen. But Megan had turned them all down for Gideon, Sarin's dad, her destined mate. Kellen had rejected his destined mate for Megan, hoping she would do the same, but she didn't. So, his obsession turned into revenge. Richard hypothesizes that he teamed up with Marvin to kidnap you two to get back at the moon goddess for selecting Gideon as Megan's mate and not him. And, in turn, he kidnapped her, violated her, and used your souls to conceive what Marvin needed. I don't think Kellen had any intention of raising the two of you. At least, not at the time. But now, we're not so sure what he or his crazy family would be capable of. Are you saying that he ruined everyone's lives to be petty? For lack of a better term, yet. I scoffed at this and just shook my head in disgust. It was no wonder Brent and Sarin reacted the way they did when they found out Kellen and Cale Thornwood were alive and behind everything. I didn't know Kellen personally, but I already hated him. Wait, why would his mate want us dead though? You just said Kellen rejected her. His current mate is not his destined mate, at least not according to Richard. Kellen did, in fact, reject his destined mate for Megan, but because she didn't reciprocate those feelings, Kellen's father forced him to take a chosen mate, aka, Cale Thornwood's mom, Nicole. What? So, Cale Thornwood's mom isn't even Kellen's destined mate? Brent shook his head. Richard says that Nicole is toxic and had her own obsession with Kellen. She hated Megan because she knew she could never compare to her. If she were to find out Kellen had an encounter with Megan, and that it produced 2 pups, what do you think she would do to you two? I gulped. She would kill us to get back at him, I answered. Exactly. You see, baby, we need to mate ASAP. We need to complete the bond. I need to be able to know you're alive, at the very least, if anything were to ever happen to you, he begged me. I looked into his eyes, and I knew that he really needed this. But deeper than that, he wanted it. Who was I kidding? I wanted it too. And I was excited to try out the new skills I learned. Without saying anything, I swung my leg over his knees and straddled him on the bed. Alexa, what are you? SHHH. Let me make you feel better, Brent, I whispered to him. Call me mistress, I said to him. What? He pulled away. What did you say? I pushed him down onto his back forcefully. I said, call me mistress, sub. His eyes widened and I smiled. I got up and went to his closet. I found a couple of his belts and some ties. I guess these would have to do. I went back to the bed while holding on to everything, and his eyes looked like full moons. Alexa, what spot? Mistress. I shouted and slapped his leg with one of the belts in my hand. Ow, he yelled and jumped. He looked a little afraid and I thought maybe I was doing something wrong, but what I saw I want you, and in the middle of the bed, sub, I commanded him in a very dominating voice. He paused for a minute, second-guessing whether I was being serious or not, but I PPED the belt again. Move. Okay, okay, he finally responded and quickly removed his clothes. Leave your boxers on, I instructed him. He nodded his head and got back onto the bed, promptly laying down in the middle. I took 2 of the belts and combined them to make them long enough to reach across both bedposts. I took the 3rd belt and cuffed his hands together. Lex, I smacked his leg with my hand. Mistress, what are you doing? Tying you up, what does it look like? I replied innocently. I made sure the belt was tight enough to hold him, but not too tight where it would hurt him. I moved to his legs and used the ties to repeat the same thing I did with the belts. These will have to do for now, I concluded as I slid off the bed. Mistress, what in pray tell are you doing? You wanted to mate, didn't you? Yeah, but this? Is that what this is called? His eyes widened again, and he struggled against the belts tying his hands together. Don't you dare break those! I will punish you, sub! I shouted, making him freeze instantly. I smiled at his submission. Lex. Mistress, I'm not a sub. Do you even know what that means? You will be whatever I want you to be, Brent. And tonight, you're my sub. And yes, I know what it means. You're a submissive, you have to do whatever I tell you to do. He gaped at me and didn't say another word. I was a little nervous since I had never once in front of anyone, other than Xandra and Anna. I watched Brent's eyes as they darkened. I smirked, seeing that even though his mind seemed to be against whatever I was doing, his body was getting excited. Alexa, was all I heard. Hearing my name made me angry, and I moved back down to his C.Hest. Hey, what the hell? What did you call me? Okay, I'm sorry. Mistress, that's better. Call me anything but mistress for the rest of the night, then this stops now, and you will have to wait a week. No, okay, I apologize, mistress, I smirked and straddled his face again. You will not eat me more, until I say you can, sub, do you understand? Yes, mistress. We do everything my way, sub. If I tell you to eat, you eat. If I tell you to ck, you ck. If I tell you to s.uk, you s.uk. Understand? Yes, mistress. Oh, and I need you to choose a safe word. A safe word? Yes, a safe word. If anything becomes too much or too painful, I need to know when to stop hurting you. Hurting me? Pick a safe word or this ends now. I commanded him. Eternity. Eternity. I looked down at him. Yes, eternity. That's how long I want to spend with you. I paused for a second and processed what he just said to me. I climbed down and untied his hands. Brent, what do you mean by eternity? I asked him. I love you, Alexa. And we're mates. I never want to be without you. When all of this is over, and things have gone back to normal, I want to marry you. I know in the werewolf world, there are no weddings, but I was once human, I've always dreamed of marrying the love of my life. At one point, that was my human girlfriend, before my life turned upside down, but now, it's you. You are the love of my life, Alexa, and I want to marry you, the human way. I felt tears sting my eyes hearing him say that. Oh, Brent, I sobbed. Shhh, don't cry, baby. I grabbed his face and kissed him. We didn't pull apart until my lungs started to burn. Untie my legs, Alexa, we're going to do this the right way first. Then, you can have whatever fun you want. I nodded my head and untied his legs. After he was free, he pp'd me over and kissed me passionately. I wanted Brent, but he didn't. Hey, why aren't you? Because, that's something you want to control, and tonight, I'm in control. So, I'll let you have a moment next time. I think you'll enjoy it more then, he said. Wait, I stopped him, and he paused to look at me. Is it going to hurt? A little, but I promise, the pain will go away, and you'll feel nothing but pleasure, he answered. I nodded my head. He put the tip at the hole again and made sure I was relaxed. I felt him push in slowly at first, and I instantly held my breath. Breathe, Alexa. You need to breathe through it, he told me. I let the breath go and relaxed again. Without a word, he pushed all the way in, making me scream from the pain. Ah! That hurts. Shhh. I know, just breathe, baby girl. Breathe through it. I promise it will go away. Just keep breathing and try not to move. After what felt like forever, the pain began to subside, and slowly it started to feel good. As if knowing my body was ready, Brent slowly moved, making me gasp at the intrusion. But that didn't stop him. He kept going. Slowly at first, but when my whimpers turned into M0ans and my body involuntarily moved with his, he started to go faster and faster. Oh, 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 yes, oh my God, Brent. Oh my God. I screamed. Brent. Please. No more. I can't. Yes, you can, he snarled and lifted me. He held onto me tight. Alexa, he roared, and I felt him bite me. The amount of pain and pleasure that I felt was nothing I had ever experienced in my entire life. As I was trying to breathe, Brent grunted into his bite on my neck, and I felt something spurt into me. It was warm, and I could feel it coat my insides all over. But he never once got up fully. Sleep was starting to take over me, and before I closed my eyes fully, I faintly heard Brent's voice. I love you, Alexa. End of FL Cale Thornwood back. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to mark him back, and every time we have X, I always see *M so much that I would be too exhausted to mark him back. So, finally, today, I decided to make him my sub again and was riding him hard while tied up to the bed. Beg me, sub, beg me. I ordered him. Please, mistress. Please, he pleaded. I've stopped him 3 times in the last 30 minutes, and he was dying. Tell me, sub. How badly do you want to? Bad? So bad, mistress. Hold it. Ah. Mistress. I'm begging you. Let me. I can't hold it again. You better hold it, I will punish you, and you don't want that. Mistress. Mistress. I gently moved off of him just enough so he would slip out, and then laid back on top of him. You cheated, I said to him. You need to be punished. I'll take every punishment you can give me, Alexa. That was awesome. Who knew you would make a good dominatrix? So, you enjoyed my little game? Yes, mistress, I did. I'm willing to play whenever you want. Good boy. Chapter 47. Sarin's POV. 3 months. It has been 3 god-forsaken months since I had that premonition of everyone dying at the Golden Moon Alpha ceremony, and not a single trace of Thep Addersons could be found. I knew for a fact that the only way I could even have that premonition was if the attack was without a doubt going to happen, had the ceremony taken place. That meant Kellen and a son of his had to be within a certain radius, and yet, none of Golden Moon's warriors found any evidence of rogues or uninvited visitors. I've been practically ripping out my own hair while trying to figure out who the mole could be, and where the hell Kellen and that sorry excuse of a family of his was hiding. Jasper had already sent Victor, Justin, and a few others back to the cave where they were held captive at Blood Moon's pack grounds to see if they might be hiding out there. Unfortunately, their search turned up absolutely nothing. But, then again, of course, it would. Kellen was anything but stupid, nor was he the type to be obvious. He was much more cunning than that. He knew exactly where people would look first. Ugh! I grunted in utter frustration. Puck, I gasped, looked down at my feet, and saw that Sam had magically appeared like Houdini playing with his toys. Puck, he reiterated. No. Sam, don't say that word. I scolded him. That's a bad word. Puck, he said again, only now with the biggest smile on his face. Nu, IGR0ANED and hung my head back. Not only did my son pick up his first curse word, I basically just gave him another way to push my B.Uttons. Grace and Ronan were not going to be happy about this. Oh. I'm telling my mom. I looked up and saw Melody, Milan, and Michelle at my office door. I didn't even notice him by my feet. I thought he was over by the corner, I whined. The three of them just laughed at me. Don't worry, Riley, Michelle said, plopping down on the couch. I doubt that Aunt Grace is as bad as Milan's mom. She smacked me and Angelo upside the head when Nikolai started to repeat curse words. Yet, my mom hates profanity. You will rarely ever hear her say anything other than damn or hell. She can barely say DCK without wanting to vomit even though she knows it references the male anatomy. She can be such a prude. I thought the term prude pertained to someone uncomfortable with X. I asked her. It does, and that's my mom. I mean, you would think that by giving birth to twins and having X for the last 20 plus years, she'd be used to it already. I swear, my mom is the strangest werewolf I know, Milan responded. Sometimes I wish my mom was a prude. Do you know how annoying it is when she brings up X to me and Ken? I mean, seriously. She asked Ken how tight my vag was. We all glanced sideways at each other and then back at Melody in shock before bursting into laughter simultaneously. Vag. She actually said the word vag. Michelle doubled over and started to snort. It's not funny, Michelle. My mom is going to embarrass me to death. We continued to laugh until we were all crying and our bellies were aching. Hey, speaking of which, I heard the Goldilocks twins are both finally mated, Michelle said once she calmed down enough to speak. Okay, 1, stop calling them that. Those are my baby sisters. 2, yes, they're both mated and have been for a while. And 3, how in the world did you find that out? I replied. Angelo told me after he heard it from Jason. Milan. I shouted at her. Don't blame Jace. Jasper and the others were having a video conference call with Griffin, Brent, and Mav, and the guys noticed that Griffin and Brent were both finally marked. I smacked my forehead with the palm of my hand. And my brother says that we gossip too much, Melody retorted. Speaking of Kellen, is that why you were about to pull out the rest of your hair? Michelle asked me. All I could do was nod. Sarin, you need to stop obsessing over this. If they were going to come after you or your sisters, then they would have already, Milan told me in her usual matter-of-fact manner. They are going to. It's not a matter of if, Milan, it's a matter of when. In my vision, Cale Thornwood takes me and he's pissed. Very, very pissed. Jasper and my son were dead. Kendrick was dead, I said and looked at Melody. The only reason why no one has died yet is that Richard was smart enough to just cancel everything. There was no weak point then. Still, it's been 3 months now, do you honestly think that they would still be plotting some kind of attack? Melody asked. I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, he kidnapped Alexa and Xandra from the Lunar Kingdom all because Marvin asked him to. Then he kidnapped my mom, and got her pregnant with their souls, which in turn made them biologically my sisters. Then, 8 years after that, he faked a challenge just to kill my father and take over, I suddenly gasped as I began to have an epiphany. What? They all asked me. Kellen took over my pack. He took over Silver Lake, I said to them. Everyone knows that, Sarin. That's nothing new, Milan responded to me. He also burned it to the ground. That's how he found Sarin, Melody added. Even I know what happened to Silver Lake. That hit the news for all of the supernatural community. Though, everyone found it hella strange that Kellen burned down a perfectly good pack house, Michelle responded, scrunching her face. You guys, Silver Lake is the only place we haven't gone to look for him. I exclaimed. They all looked at me and quirked a brow. Why would we though? Silver Lake is nothing but Cale Thornwoods. No offense, Milan said. None taken. But don't you see? My pack grounds belonged to Kellen. He said that he wanted the land but burned it instead. Obviously, because the land wasn't his actual target. My family was. But the land was still his fair and square, at least, until he was arrested. With no pack house and no pack, Silver Lake became barren, and open for the taking. Disgraced or not, Kellen is still an alpha, and so is Cale Thornwood. Wait, you're not thinking that when they faked their deaths, they went to Silver Lake and claimed the land, do you? Melody asked. That's preposterous. Actually, it's not, Milan said while looking over the map on my desk. If I remember correctly, Silver Lake was right here. Right smack dab in the middle of us and Golden Moon. We all looked at each other. I don't think Sarin's theory is so far-fetched. If there is one thing that Jason's dad taught us, it was that there is no such thing as coincidences. I need to tell Jasper, I said and immediately stood up from my desk. Can you watch Sam, Mel? Of course. I smiled and sprinted out of the office to go find Jasper. I knew he was out back training with the guys. He'd taken a leave of absence from work to concentrate on finding the Pattersons. Thankfully, his company's vice president has been handling all of the political mumbo-jumbo perfectly, and only contacted Jasper when they needed his approval on anything major. Jasper's company had really taken off after the final unveiling of the pack house they renovated in Spain for the pack that he visited before. They raved about how well the renovations had gone and that they were even better than the Alpha had hoped for. Now, packs from all over the world were wanting to do business with his company. I went out back and found the guys grappling on the ground. It was almost summer, and the ground was already scorching hot, yet, there they were shirtless, shoeless, and rolling around the training grounds covered in dirt and sand. After Dorian's trainers had worked closely with Angelo, Owen, Maddox, and Hugo over the course of the last few months, Jasper had finally approved for more realistic training. Which meant punches were no longer pulled, and body slamming was fair game. Pack members left and right were being sent to the hospital, and Dr. Andrews had become noticeably understaffed in a matter of weeks. Thankfully, none of the injuries sustained during training were life-threatening, and all pack members that were sent there in the morning were out by the afternoon, only to end up back there the next day. Ah! That burns, Jasper! I heard someone screech. I was shaken from my thoughts and saw that Jasper had Kendrick pinned on the ground, his back fully on the hot pavement outside of the cool dirt in the training area. Jasper let him up, and sure enough, Kendrick had a burn on his back. What spot, dude? You'll live, was all Jasper replied nonchalantly. I rolled my eyes and walked over to them. Ken, let me see, I said to him. The guys had finally noticed me. I looked at his back, and thankfully, it wasn't burned too badly. I used my powers to grab some water from the fountain nearby, turned it into ice for him, and placed it on his back. Oh! That's it! That feels amazing, ugh! Kendrick practically M0ANED obscenely. Sarin, what are you doing out here? Jasper finally asked me. Jasper, have you sent anyone to go look at Silver Lake? I asked him abruptly. Silver Lake? Your old pack, he asked me, making sure he heard correctly. I nodded. No, why? Jasper, when Kellen had challenged my father, he challenged him for our pack and won. He won Silver Lake from my dad. We know that already. But the challenge was voided when Kellen admitted to using the challenge to cover up premeditated murder. 10 years after the fact, I replied. Jasper paused and gaped at me. Even though he had burned down the pack house, and killed everyone. The land itself still belonged to him, legally, until he was found out. What are trying to say, Sarin? Jason asked, coming over to us. You're a businessman, Jasper. If you had a piece of land as big as Silver Lake in your name for almost a decade, would you leave it barren? I asked him. He looked at me questionably. No, I would either rebuild, or I would sell. Exactly. But, from what we heard, Kellen didn't do either, Kendrick responded as he tried to look at his back. He told the investigating elder that he felt that it had no purpose or something along those lines. Said that the land wasn't worth it. That's when he dug his own grave by admitting that he faked the challenge. Right, I replied and looked back at Jasper. You think he built something at Silver Lake in secret, don't you? He asked me, and I shrugged. Either that, or he would have taken it from rogues after his escape. Silver Lake became a wasteland because Kellen didn't claim it as part of his property. So, rogues would have moved in, and what's that word? Scooted? No, squatted. Rogues could have squatted there in passing, I explained. Jasper looked at Kendrick and Jason. Jace, get Victor and the others and take a team to Silver Lake. See if there's anything out of the ordinary. Take pictures and videos, but don't venture too far onto the territory. If Kellen is squatting there, we don't want him to find out we found him. You got it, Jason said and smirked at me. I smiled at Jasper and he gave me a look and desire. Jasper, why are you looking at me like that? Oh, hell no, I'm out of here, Kendrick said when he also saw the way Jasper was looking at me like I was fresh meat of some sort. I was watching Kendrick's retreating form when I heard a very animalistic and growl. I turned towards Jasper, and his eyes were pitch black. Jasper, stop looking at me like that. We don't have time for this. There is always time for X, Sarin. Especially with you. Have I ever told you that your intelligence is the SE****st attribute about you? Jasper, we've been over this. You practically broke me when we got back from Golden Moon. I squealed when he lunged at me playfully. You loved it. I'd never heard you scream my name so loud before. I want to make you scream that loud all the time, he said as he chased me. I'm faster than you. I shouted and used my super speed to dodge his arms. Oh, you want to play that again, do you? He yelled after me and started to chase me down. Need I remind you what will happen when I catch you? You mean, if? I shouted back. I heard him growl and the sound of clothes ripping made me put some extra oomph into my steps as Blade came bounding after me. I decided to let Callie out so she and Blade could have some fun for themselves as well. Third-person POV. As Sarin, Jasper, and their wolves were having their little fun, they were too engulfed in each other to notice that they were being watched from afar. Along the hillside around the Blue Lake Pack, a spy was in their midst, recording everything they were doing. Once the spy had enough, he left and returned to Kellen Patterson to inform him of what he had witnessed. Ever since the Golden Moon ceremonies were cancelled, the Pattersons had been perfecting their plan for revenge against everyone. Even though their initial plan to attack the ceremony was a bust, it did not deter them. It only made them much more determined, and that much more devoted. In hindsight, for them, it gave ample time to concoct a plan that would be literally foolproof. Only, they still had no idea Sarin was the reason behind their failed attack before. When the spy returned to Silver Lake, he himself had no idea that he was being watched now. Jason and the team he put together observed from about 100 yards away from the Silver Lake border. The spy went into the burned pack house that looked like it would come crumbling down with the smallest vibration. Did you find out anything useful? Kellen asked his spy. I found out something all right, something is interesting about the Luna of Blue Lake. What do you mean? Kellen asked. Cale Thornwood lifted his head from the table where he was working after the spy mentioned Sarin. See for yourself. The spy handed Kellen a tablet with the video recordings he made, and Cale Thornwood came to hover and look for himself. 3 things caught their attention. Sarin manipulating water and turning into ice in thin air, her inhumane speed in human form, and the fact that her wolf was baby blue. What spot? Cale Thornwood mumbled more to himself than anything. He was in awe of her. He was already head over heels in love with her and loathing how he let her go by being a pompous D.C.K., but to see that she had powers and a rare-colored wolf made him and his wolf, Kano, howl in delight and then snarl in envy. What is this? Kellen demanded. Did you know? Kellen asked his son. Of course, I didn't. I wouldn't have rejected her had I known she was a rare wolf. The question is, how the hell didn't you know? You're the one who took her in as a kid. I thought she was an Omega. How was I supposed to know she was the heir to these lands? You have to be joking me. And to think you were once an Alpha. She was the only child left alive, and she was hidden away like precious cargo. It should have been obvious that she was someone of great importance. The fact that you didn't even know the Silver Lake Alpha and his Luna had a kid makes you even more incompetent. To think that you were so obsessed with Sarin's mom, you faked a challenge to kill her mate to try and win her over. Despicable. Cale Thornwood spit at his father and walked away. Worthless excuse of a son, Kellen muttered back. They growled and snarled at each other, and the spy just rolled his eyes. Their constant bickering was getting tiresome. If only they knew just how precious and rare Sarin truly was. The spy walked away to let the squabbling, disgraced alphas Cale Thornwood it out as they always did. How they haven't killed each other, he would never know. As the spy was leaving the confinements of the Silver Lake packhouse towards the border of the land, he was suddenly grabbed and pinned against a tree. His eyes bulged out of his head when he saw who had him. Well, look at who we have here, Jason said, studying the spy once over. Wait, is this who I think it is? Angelo asked, checking out the spy as well. Yes, indeed it is. Gentlemen, may I introduce you to Mr. West? Andrea's father. Chapter 48. Jasper's POV. Regardless of the state of affairs prior to the recon mission, I was naive to think I would feel a sense of relief knowing we finally had a lead on the whereabouts of that S.H.T. Stain and his family. I sat at my desk in my home office with Sarin by my side as Jason reported his findings to me. Despite hearing everything he said, I still caught myself zoning out as I stared up at him while he spewed the information he and the others found out. The fact that Andrea's father was a spy for Kellen Patterson made my skin crawl. I had released him and his mate under the premise that they would go find Andrea after her banishment. But instead of reuniting with her and moving on with their lives, he went about teaming up with the Pattersons and had been spying on us. Wait, so if he's been spying on us for Kellen, what happened to his mate and Andrea? Sarin asked Jason. He said that after they found Andrea, she received the medical help she needed from human doctors, but she's badly scarred. So instead of being grateful that I let her live, they've been plotting against me. I asked in annoyance. Not them, just him. Apparently, his mate and Andrea have no idea what he's been up to. He covered it up by lying to them and saying he's been going to work. He even fabricated this elaborate lie that he found a job with humans to sustain their living arrangements. How is Kellen even paying him? Sarin asked. Something about some hidden wealth, Jason answered. I was right, though. They're hiding out at my old pack. It appears so. Though, West did give us something we could use, Jason responded. What's that? I asked. The fact that Cale Thornwood and his father are constantly at each other's throats. That's nothing new, though. They were always fighting when I was living under their roof. Cale Thornwood always hated how Kellen dictated his life. Cale Thornwood was always trying to please him, but it never seemed to be enough. The only time I ever saw Kellen even remotely proud of Cale Thornwood was when he gave him the Alpha TLE, and even then, I don't think it was genuine, Sarin said. Dearest, were you even at the ceremony? If my memory serves me right, you were inside getting beat up by Tessa and Nicole, I reminded her as I dug through the layers of my memories from when I first saw her. I saw the handover, went inside, and then got beat up, she retorted while smacking my shoulder before she turned her attention back to Jason. Does he know who the mole is at Golden Moon? No, he doesn't. I asked him, and he said that he has no idea who else Kellen has under his thumb. He only knows as much as Kellen tells him, which is next to nothing. Which I don't get, honestly. Why hire spies but keep them in the dark about everything? Because of situations like this. If any of his spies are ever caught, they could never tell their captors Kellen's plans, because they don't know. If they die, they die. Kellen could give 2ts about them, I answered, making Jason nod. This just goes to show just how stupid Kellen isn't, Sarin said while rubbing her temples. We have another problem, Jason hesitantly brought up. Sarin stopped rubbing her temples to look at him. West had a video recording of you two running in your wolf forms, but before that, the recording shows Sarin using her super speed. He showed it to Patterson. So, they know I have super speed and that my wolf is a unique color. Sarin verified and Jason nodded. It then. Let them know. It'll piss Cale Thornwood off even more that he rejected me. He's probably whining, he is thinking that I took his most prized possession from him. I can only imagine how he will react if he ever finds out what you really are, I told her as I ached my arms around her. W.A.S.T., pulling her down into my lap where I subsequently nuzzled her neck with my nose and kissed her flesh. She could only roll her eyes in response and shook her head while trying to stifle a giggle. Jace, were you able to find out anything else? I asked him as I noticed him smirking at us. Not much that pertains to how we're going to catch them. Which reminds me, what do we do with West? If we keep him locked up, Patterson will eventually figure out he's missing, but if we let him go, he'll probably just go back to Patterson to tell him that we're onto him. If he gets wind that we know where his base of operations is, then that ruins our chance of getting rid of him once and for all. I hear you, Jace, and I've been contemplating the same thing, I responded, resting my forehead on Sarin's shoulder as I thought about how to handle this delicate situation. On the one hand, I could just kill West for taking advantage of my kindness to release him, only for him to turn his back on me, but what's not to say I can't leverage him? Jasper, you're thinking too hard! Sarin exclaimed. I looked at her and quirked an eyebrow at her for reading my thoughts. Don't give me that look. The easiest way for us to maintain the upper hand is to play dirty. No more Miss Nice Primordial, she declared and pushed herself off my lap and stomped out of my office. Jason and I looked at one another before we quickly followed her. As we were pacing after her, we ran into Kendrick, but he didn't have a chance to say anything as we rushed past him. Yo, where's the fire? He called out after us. A few seconds later, I could hear his footsteps behind us. Sarin, "Where are you?" I was about to ask where she was going until I saw her making a beeline for the dungeon doors. "Move, Maddox!" Sarin shouted at him. He didn't even hesitate to move out of the way for her. I glared at him as I walked past. "Sorry, Alpha, but I'm not getting in her way when she's on a mission." I honestly couldn't say that I blamed him. When we arrived at the bottom of the staircase that led to the cells, Sarin was already inside West's cell. We got the tail end of her throwing him across the cell with her powers. "Sarin!" I shouted at her and ran inside to calm her down. "You're out of control!" West spurted out. "I should have known you would abuse your powers." "I'm not abusing anything." "Well, except for maybe you," she retorted and strung him up mid-air. "You can't do this to me," he cried out like a little girl. "Actually, I can. The laws that pertain to attacking another wolf only apply to innocent pack members, and the last I checked, you're no longer a pack member. Also, I wouldn't exactly call you innocent. After all, you're working for a wanted fugitive. That makes you an accessory if I'm not mistaken." I couldn't stop the smile that formed across my face. Sarin really has come a long way in terms of werewolf law. This is ridicule. West screamed murder, which shook me from my proud thoughts. I looked up and saw that Sarin had his arm folded like a pretzel. "Sarin!" I called out to her, but I saw that her eyes were fully clouded over. "What spot is she doing?" Kendrick asked. "She's forcing herself into his mind. She's going to get every piece of information out of him if it's the last thing she does." After a few minutes of just standing around, Sarin's eyes turned back to normal, and she dropped West to the ground. "Now that I know where your mate and Andrea are, you have two choices, West," Ryle announced to him. He glanced upwards while cradling his arm, his eyes filled with terror. "You switch sides and work for us, and spy on Kellen, or, I kill you and have our pack warriors go pick up your mate and daughter and have them brought here to die as well. Your choice." "Sarin, we don't bargain with people's lives like that." I scolded her, but she snarled at me in response. "Are you telling me that their lives are more important than the life of your son? Don't forget, Jasper, in my vision pups were killed without mercy, and that included ours. You died either trying to save him, or you were blindsided while mourning him," she croaked out while tears brimmed her eyes. Her small hands were clenched into fists as her jaw ticked. "I will do whatever it takes to keep our son alive, and by any means necessary." I let out a sigh and just nodded my head. Sarin had a point. She turned her attention back to West. "What's it going to be? You can't be serious. It's a lose-lose situation for me and my family. I help you, and Kellen kills my family. If I help him, you kill my family. You should have thought of that before," Sarin sneered. West's eyes widened when he finally came to the realization that Sarin wasn't going to falter on her choices. You could see the wheels turning in his head as his eyes darted back and forth, up and around, and down to the floor before he finally ground his teeth and heaved out a sigh of defeat. "Fine, you win, Luna." That's what I thought. We spent the next hour or so prepping him on what to say to Kellen. Kellen may not have been stupid enough to tell West anything about his plans, but he was stupid enough to use someone that used to be part of this pack. Even stupider to use someone from Griffin's pack, though, we still had yet to find out who it was. Sarin kept suggesting it was likely Griffin's stalker, Lorelei, but former Beta Everett assured that she had not once left the pack house after the girls had arrived there. Brent thought it could be her brother, hell-bent on revenge after getting his punishment for mistakenly attacking Sarin, but Richard assured that he wouldn't be stupid enough to do something that would cost him his life. He was already scared of Sarin as it is after seeing what she could do. It wouldn't make sense for him to piss her off even more than he already had. Sarin decided that it would be best for William and Olivia to go back to Golden Moon disguised as lone wolves and ask for membership into Richard's pack. That way, William could use his powers to see if he could find the mole. Sarin was insistent that she go herself because this was so personal for her, even though I protested against it. It took me, Griffin, and William to convince her not to go in there. She would make it too obvious that she was looking for the mole even if she were to be in disguise. Griffin also reassured her that Riker has been keeping a close eye on the girls. He never strayed too far from them. Apparently, having a were-tiger for a personal guard has kept away the crazies like Lorelei, her brother, and any other pack member who wanted to try and pick on Alexa and Xandra. A lot of the bullying has stopped since Griffin has officially marked Xandra and Brent Alexa, but it doesn't stop the mean glares, at least not until Riker growled and showed his eyes to people. After we released West back into the lion's den that was Kellen's hiding place, I sent Angelo and Victor out to follow him from afar to gather as much information as possible. Kellen wouldn't be dumb enough to give up anything to West that could really be of any use, so it was up to my men to do their due diligence. Even though we knew where they were hiding, we couldn't go in blind. If Sarin's premonition 3 months ago was any indication of what Kellen and Cale Thornwood were capable of, then I needed to do as much recon as possible, and make sure that there were no loose ends or hidden agendas. Just thinking about the fact that Sam was killed in that attack, made my skin crawl, my blood boil, and my heart ache. Sarin was right about one thing: West's family was of no importance to us or our pack, not anymore. He made his choice and now, he was going to have to live with them, even if it meant the death of his family. West was either really stupid or really desperate to team up with Kellen Patterson, a mass murderer. A part of me couldn't stop wondering exactly how I died holding our son in my arms. There could honestly be any number of scenarios that result in my death, but Sam's? There was only one. Cale Thornwood killed him. Kellen would have no reason to harm my son as there would be no benefit to him. But Cale Thornwood would reap all of the benefits that came with killing my heir. He wouldn't hurt Sarin, at least not kill her anyway, he's too obsessed with her for that. But killing Sam and then me would give him the emotional advantage over her, or our deaths would make her the scariest she-wolf to have ever existed. With Sarin's powers being primarily tied to her emotions, the death of anyone close to her would tip the scale on her control in the wrong direction. But seeing how she reacted when she saw me and our son dead, I would hate to be on the receiving end of that wrath. What are you thinking so hard about? I peered down at Sarin, who was staring up at me. I smiled a little and pulled her close to me. Are you okay? Yeah, for now. What were you thinking about just now? And don't try to lie to me, she warned as she wrapped her arms around my waist. Oh, just how much I want to rip Cale Thornwood's head from his body. Get in line. I chuckled at her response. He's the one who killed Sam, I just know he did, she said quietly. Either you read my mind, or we're thinking the same thing, I replied and looked down at her. No, I didn't read your mind. It makes sense that Cale Thornwood would go after Sam. He's the next alpha in line to Blue Lake and the product of our bond. Unless you and I have more pups, he would be the last primordial. Even if, by some horrible twist of fate, Cale Thornwood were to get his hands on me, mate with me, and we produced a pup, it wouldn't be a primordial. William said that only pups I had with you would inherit our powers. I growled in response to hearing her even mention a hypothetical situation where she had that mutt's pups. My grasp on her tightened as I held her incredibly close. Calm down, I'm not saying I would ever let him touch me, I'm just saying that Sam's death would destroy not only the Valencia bloodline but William's as well, even though we're born differently. That's never going to happen, Sarin. Yes, you had a vision, but it's been 3 months, and nothing has happened. Yet, she added. Even if something does, we're no longer going to be blindsided or caught off guard. Neither will Griffin's pack. We've both put extra measures in place to ensure the safety of our packs and the people who reside in them. The elders are also keeping their eye out for anything that changes. Until Kellen is found, everyone will be on high alert. We already know where he is though. All the more reason to wait him out. Unless West wants to witness his family's death, he will keep his mouth shut to Kellen about us knowing where he's hiding out. I can't believe that he's soiling my old pack grounds with his presence there. It's inged up enough that he killed my family and burned my home to the ground, but now he's squatting there, tainting it even more. I'm sorry that your old pack is being tarnished this way, but I promise you, once Kellen and his family are out of lives for good, we will restore Silver Lake. She looked up at me in shock. What? I just smiled down at her. What do you mean by restore? What do you think I mean, Tink? We're going to rebuild Silver Lake's packhouse and make it a vacation home for our family. Do you really mean that? Yes, and we will have memorials built for your parents. Ones that they are deserving of. Her eyes brimmed with tears again, and this time, they instantly fell. I wiped them away with my thumbs as I cupped her face. Jasper, she sobbed. I'm sorry I couldn't do this for you sooner, dearest. This should have been done last year after everything settled down, but we weren't in the best of places. I know that's not an excuse, but it did cloud my better judgment on a lot of things. But I want to make it up to you, and to your parents. Uncle Mitch and Aunt Megan would kick me if they saw how badly I had treated you and our bond over the last couple of years. If they had been alive when all that SHT happened, I'm sure that they would have castrated me, or worse, taken you away from me. She let out a small giggle as tears streamed down her pet-te face. I love you, Jasper. Not as much as I love you. She sobbed and leaned into my chest as I held her close. Also, while we're on the subject of kids, tell me, do you want more? She stopped crying instantly and froze in my arms. She looked up again and lifted an eyebrow at me. Do you? She asked in return while dodging her response. Of course. I want at least 5. 5. At least, I reiterated. I'm not getting pregnant 4 more times, Jasper, she screamed and pushed me away. Giving birth to Sam was hard enough as it was. You want me to do it 4 more times? At least. She gawked at me. And hey, who knows, maybe we can knock it out in 2 rounds and not 4. There's always the possibility of having multiples. She scoffed. I can just see it now, your body swelling with my pup or pups again. It makes me hard just thinking about it, I teased her and put her hand on top of my ever-growing hard-on. Jasper, she squealed and pulled her hand back, seemingly flustered. What's wrong, baby? You love it when I get a raging boner, remember? Oh my god, she squeaked and blushed. Sarin, I can't wait to plant more of my seed inside of you, IM0ANED as I pulled her flush against me and nibbled on her mark, causing her to M0AN in response. The air around us was instantly filled with her AR0USAL. See, you want it too, I teased and S.ucked on her flesh. Oh, she M0ANED even harder as my hand went between her legs. I think we should get a move on and give Sam a younger sibling, or 2, or 4, I said and lifted her into my arms. She pulled me into a deep and passionate kiss as I sped up the stairs to our room and slammed the door behind us. Dealing with Kellen would have to wait until tomorrow. For the rest of the day and night, I planned on making love to Sarin until she saw stars. Chapter 49. Riker's POV. After spending so much time locked away in that trafficking prison, it was a nice change of pace to regain my freedom. 4 months on the outside was not much different than the blink of an eye for a were-tiger, compared to the years I spent fantasizing about how I would kill Marvin if I ever got my hands on him. It was nothing. Sadly, someone beat me to the punch. The little blonde wolf of Blue Lake had killed Marvin while in a fit of rage. I won't lie, I was pissed when I heard the news. Not because I wanted him to live, but because I wanted to be the one to exterminate him. If there was a way to resurrect the dead, I would do it, and kill him all over again, but not as quickly. I would cut every single vein in his arms and open every artery in his body so I could watch him slowly bleed to death. Since I was deprived of that, now all I could do was wait for a war that was bound to happen. I've pledged my loyalty to this wolf pack, Golden Moon, only because the Goldilocks sisters were here. They were like daughters to me, only werewolves instead. I still remember the day that they were born. I watched as that beautiful she-wolf, Megan I believe her name was, gave birth to them. At the time, Anna and I thought she would surely die during childbirth, seeing as how she was extremely underweight and savagely beaten. Thankfully, she didn't. Anna and I watched over the 3 of them as Megan recovered from giving birth. She had lost a lot of blood, but Anna was able to help her heal. A month after they were born, Megan was drugged and dragged away, and the girls were left with Anna. We never knew what happened to Megan. Imagine my surprise when I heard that the girls were the other blonde sisters and that Megan was her mother. I also heard that the man who impregnated her was the man that killed her several years later. I'm even more determined now to help not just Alexa and Xandra, but also the Blue Lake blonde, Sarin. Riker, stop looking so serious. I heard a voice and felt someone punching my arm, but it felt more like a nudge. I looked down to my left and saw Alexa peering up at me with a smile. Was that supposed to hurt me? I teased her. PSH, yeah right. Hurt you? No one can hurt you. I've witnessed countless of those guards back in the prison die trying to hurt you. I smirked at her and looked back out into the forest that surrounded the Golden Moon pack house. Where's your sister, little one? With Griffin, probably having X, she answered nonchalantly, and I immediately cringed at her words. I do not need to know that. I snarled at her. All she did was laugh in response. Geez, you sound like a grumpy old man. Calm down. I might as well be a grumpy old man, seeing as how I'm over 200 years old. You're what? She gaped at me while looking up. 200. 202, to be exact. Is that normal for were-tigers? Yes, it is. Unlike you wolves, tigers have a long lifespan. Because we are so few in number now, those of us that are still alive were blessed by our God with the gift of being sempiternal. What does that mean? It means that our bodies do not change. We are eternal beings, assuming we're not killed. Just like a Siberian tiger, we are endangered. We're not immortal, we can still die, but time cannot ravage us. We need to be able to reproduce in order to bring up our numbers, but with so few of us left, it's exceedingly difficult. Do tigers have mates the way wolves do? We did, at one point in time, but that's changed. The scales have been tipped because, from the last I heard, there are only a handful of females left, less than 10 if I'm not mistaken. There are more males, but the females don't want to reproduce only for the sake of saving our kind. They refuse to be used solely for the sake of breeding. Oh, I guess that means giving birth to, cubs. She lifted a brow with uncertainty, to which I just smiled and nodded my head. Isn't as easy as one may think, hey. No, it's not. And unfortunately, even if cubs are born, the survival rate is slim. Unlike werewolves and some of our other supernatural brethren, where tiger cubs are born as tiger cubs. They stay in their tiger form for at least a year. Which means the female does as well, so she can raise them. Sadly, that makes them easy targets for hunters and fur collectors. That's why so many of us have perished. I'm so sorry, Riker, I had no idea, Alexa said with sorrow as she lowered her head. After a moment of silence, Alexa broke it with a question. Is that why you were taken? Did Marvin plan on finding a female to force you two to reproduce? No, I heard that I was captured for someone else, but for that exact reason. Apparently, there's a buyer out there who has been looking for a tiger couple to create cubs so he could sell for a profit. He wouldn't pay Marvin until he had both me and a female to present to him. Marvin was having trouble finding a female. As I said, there are very few of them, and they're great at hiding. That's why it's taken damn near 2 decades to find one, and now he never will. That's so sick. I can't believe there are so many people out there that are sick and twisted. Then again, I shouldn't be surprised, there were 2 buyers for me and Xandra. I looked down at her when she said that. There were. Yeah, I guess you didn't hear. Marvin had 1 buyer, but that human toy of his had another buyer lined up. The other buyer was apparently willing to help Levi kill Marvin so that he could take over the operation, but Jasper killed Levi in the tunnels at the prison site, and you already know that Sarin killed Marvin. I know of the buyer that Marvin had set up. He was a regular, but who was the buyer that Levi had set up? I asked her, intrigued by this new information. She just shrugged her shoulders. I thought about it for a moment. Who else would want wolves that were descendants of the moon goddess? Not a lot of people knew who the girls were. Only Marvin, Levi, and the buyer that Marvin had set up. Also, the one who... Wait, Alexa, did Levi ever mention if his buyer was supernatural or not? You'd have to ask Jasper that. Why? Because your identities are a big secret. There were only a handful of people in Marvin's operation who knew who you two are. Okay. Alexa, one of those people is your birth father. Yeah, but buying us? I doubt he even knows that we exist. He left our mother before she gave birth to us. Marvin even said that Kellen didn't know if we had survived or not or were conceived or whatever. Alexa, that kind of information doesn't stay quiet for long. Remember what Jasper told Griffin? Kellen was the one who kidnapped the 2 of you from the kingdom for Marvin. Even if he didn't know at the time that you had been conceived, I'm sure he knows now. That may be the reason why he was going to attack 3 months ago. What if he found out that you 2 were here, and was coming for you? But, in Sarin's vision, everyone was dead. If he wanted us, why would he kill everyone? She stuttered. A man like your birth father doesn't need a reason to kill. He kills because wants to. He's a killer from what I have been told about him. Alexa was turning pale white. Little one, are you okay? I asked as I grabbed her shoulders. Before she could answer, Brent came running over to us. What happened? He exclaimed as he took Alexa from me. I don't know. She just turned pale, and now she can't speak. Alexa, baby, talk to me. Alexa looked as if she were in a trance. Alexa's eyes were fixated on nothing, her pupils were completely dilated, and she just stood there. Suddenly, she fell backward, and Brent caught her. He gently laid her down on the ground, but nothing about her changed. If anything, she was getting worse. "What's happening to her?" I asked. "I have no idea, man." "What were the two of you talking about?" Brent demanded to know. "Her birth father," I answered honestly. "Why Spot would you talk to her about Kellen?" "She's terrified of the guy as it is," he snarled. "I didn't think she would go into a state of shock like this," I responded while pointing at her on the ground. Out of nowhere, Xandra and Griffin came bounding towards us. Xandra was shouting as she came to a halt and kneeled by Alexa. By the time she reached her, several people abruptly appeared in front of us. "Jasper!" Griffin exclaimed. "How?" Sarin said she couldn't feel Alexa's presence anymore. "Olivia teleported us here," he answered. "What's wrong with her?" Sarin asked while kneeling by Alexa as well. "Girls, stand back!" William shouted at them. He pulled Sarin away, and Griffin pulled Xandra away. Without warning, Alexa's hair changed colors to a stark white, her eyes became milky, and a symbol started to glow on her forehead. "What the hell?" Brent yelled. "Wah! What's happening?" he panicked. "The crest of the Lunar Kingdom," William said in complete awe. As we all stared down at Alexa's changing form, a burst of white light came out of the symbol on her forehead. I shielded my eyes with my forearm. As I felt the light dimming, I lowered my arm but found something was very wrong. Alexa was gone. "Where's Xandra?" Griffin asked, frantically looking around. "Where's Sarin?" Jasper shouted at the same time. "Where is William?" Olivia exclaimed. We all looked at each other. They were nowhere in sight. Did that white light have anything to do with this? Brent questioned Jasper. "Why are you looking at me? How Spot am I supposed to know?" Jasper shouted with his arms flailing. "Olivia! You're asking me? I'm just a witch. You've been alive for 1,000 years. Jasper retorted. "It doesn't make me an expert on SHT like this," she snapped back. "My Luna is missing. There's no time for this SHT. Griffin roared. "My Luna is missing too if you haven't noticed." Jasper snarled back. "What if they?" Brent began to say. "Don't even go there," we all shouted at him in unison. "William can't even die. He's immortal. So, they can't be dead. That light probably teleported them somewhere," Olivia said more to herself than to us, but loud enough so we could hear. "They're not dead. We would have felt it through our bond," Jasper said calmly. Griffin and Brent also nodded, letting out sighs of relief. "If they're not dead, then where are they?" I asked. No one said a thing. We all just stared at where they were not even a minute ago. Something strange was happening. Chapter 50. Sarin's POV. After that surge of white light hit us, I quickly shielded my eyes with my arm. I felt Jasper embrace me, pulling me into his C.Hest. Suddenly, I was inundated with an overwhelming sense of loneliness and realized that I was no longer in Jasper's arms. I frantically searched around, only to confirm that I was, indeed, by myself. "Jasper!" I called out to him but heard nothing. "Jasper!" I called out louder. The silence was deafening. Just as my distress was approaching full-blown panic, I finally noticed I was inside a room of some sort, and it looked oddly familiar. Where am I? I asked out loud. I was about to cry out for Jasper again when I was distracted by the sound of a child's laughter outside of the door. It wasn't Sam because it sounded like a little girl. I thought maybe it could be Leanne, but before I could open the door to check, I heard an all too familiar name being yelled. Sarin Calloway, you get back here this instant. Daddy, the child screamed. Oh, my sweet, sweet Sarin. Are you driving your mother crazy again? A soothing and comforting voice asked. Tears immediately welled up in my eyes. As slowly and quietly as possible, I opened the door and peeked out. Down the hall, I saw them. Mom? Dad? I whispered to myself, praying that they couldn't hear me. Ugh! Why must she be like you and insist on being ached all the time? I can't even get her to take a bath without her pulling a fast one on me, my mother shouted. Megan, baby, she's a 2-year-old toddler. They all live to be ached. It has nothing to do with me. And if my memory serves me correctly, you're the one who always wants me ached, do you not? My father asked in a playful tone. I wanted to gag hearing my father speak to my mother the way Jasper spoke to me. It was also kind of hilarious to hear my mother yell at me the way I yell at Sam. I guess the apple really doesn't fall far from the tree. Gideon, I swear to the moon goddess, she gave us this child because she wanted to punish us, my mother joked. Please, our daughter is the biggest blessing in our lives. It took us 7 years to finally conceive her, and I think there was a reason for that. What do you mean? Did you see the way Ronan's boy looked at her when she was born? I was shocked to hear my father talk about Jasper. Yes. He's 8 years old and he saw a baby for the first time. I'm sure he was intrigued by the phenomenon, my mother answered, taking me back from my father's arms. I watched as I clung to my mother for dear life and rested my head on her shoulders. Well, that may be partially true, babe, but I think there was another reason behind him marveling at this beautiful child, my father replied as he combed the back of my head for me. There was so much adoration in his eyes. Well, aren't you going to enlighten me? My mother asked him. I couldn't see her face, but I heard her voice. It was just as beautiful as I remembered, and my father was just as handsome. I think Jasper and our beautiful little primordial here are mates. I gasped when I heard my father call me a primordial. He knew? My gaze shifted to the ground in utter confusion. How did my parents know? SHHH. Midge. Not so loud. We can't let the pack know what she is just yet. We won't know for sure until she becomes of age anyway, my mother shouted at him. Please, we both know already. We're both pure-blooded alphas, and so are Ronan and his son. For an 8-year-old pup, Jasper sure was smitten with Sarin. I'm sure he saw right through these chocolate eyes and knew immediately she is destined to be his future Luna. Mitch, if that's true, then she's going to be the mother of all primordial werewolves, my mother said with awe in her voice. My past self had already fallen asleep on her shoulder, and I saw that I had a chunk of her hair securely in my hand. Now I finally understood where Sam got this habit. You're right, and we're her parents. I think there was a reason behind us having to wait so long to conceive, and this has to be it, my father said. My mother nodded, and I watched as he leaned down and gave her a sweet kiss. He then proceeded to give me a kiss on the back of the head as he rubbed my back. My beautiful Sarin, you're going to be a very special wolf one day, and I can't wait to see you become the most powerful werewolf to ever exist. As they walked away, the tears started to flow again. My parents were denied the privilege of watching me grow up. They never got the chance to see me become the person that I am today. 8 years from now, they would both be brutally murdered. I closed the door quietly and leaned against it as I cried some more. To see the amount of love my parents had for me was more than I could bear. As I dwelled on the fact that my parents missed out on so much because of that, Kellen, something dawned on me. Oh my goddess, I'm too right now. That means this should be around the time my mother is taken by Marvin or Kellen, I said to myself. I quickly wiped away my tears and opened the door again, but instead of being out in the hall, I saw the lake behind the pack house. Oh! Silver Lake, I said with awe. I had forgotten how beautiful the lake was when the full moon was out. The hue reflected from the moon was the reason for the pack's namesake, Silver Lake. It made the water appear silver. As I stared into the water of the crystal-clear lake at my old pack, I heard a noise behind me. I swiftly rushed to conceal myself behind a large bush. I looked at the bush with a sense of déjà vu and remembered this was my favorite hiding spot as a kid. To think that, even as an adult, I chose this place to hide. I shook my head and kept a lookout for what made the noise. I was shocked to see my mom, alone. Sarin, the mother to all primordials. I can't believe how lucky I am. Here I thought Mitch would be the biggest blessing in my life, but no, I have an even bigger blessing now. My sweet Sarin, she said to herself. It was crazy to me, looking at my mom. She reminded me so much of Xandra. Really, it was the other way around, but whatever, the point was that Xandra and mom looked alike. I remembered Dylan mentioning that the moon goddess children took the same form as mortals as they did when they were in the kingdom. It made me wonder how Xandra could look so much like mom when the only traits Alexa inherited were blonde hair and blue eyes. I knew I got my eyes from my father and my hair from my mother. But Alexa, she's an anomaly, a beautiful anomaly, but an anomaly, nonetheless. She didn't even resemble Kellen, and I knew that for a fact. After all, I had to look at his ugly face for 8 years of my life, day in and day out. Well, look at what we have here, an unknown voice said, interrupting my thoughts. Whose spot are you? My mother asked. Well, I guess it was no secret where I got my potty mouth from. Such ugly words coming from such a beautiful woman. It's no wonder Kellen Patterson is so obsessed with you, the stranger said. Who was this guy? Kellen Patterson? What spot does he want now? And how the hell did you get on our pack lands? Well, it's kind of obvious what he wants from you, Luna Megan, and how I ended up here. Well, let's just say you have some major security flaws. 3 guards? Piece of a cake. My mother snarled and I watched as her eyes started to cloud over. Nah, don't do that now, Luna Megan. Not unless you want your mate to get shot in the heart with a silver bullet, he taunted her. He pointed to the tree adjacent to my father's office, and sure enough, there was someone perched up in the tree with a rifle pointed directly at the window. What do you want? She asked while gritting her teeth. Come with us willingly, or we kill your mate, he told her. I was curious as to why he wasn't threatening my life. You're not even a wolf, my mother said with distaste. No. Now, get a move on before I tell my guy to kill your mate. I'm not being paid to waste my time. Paid? Kellen is paying you. Of course he is. He paid us a nice little chunk of change to get this job done. Now, come with me before I lose all of my patience with you. Only if you promise to leave my mate out of this. Sure. My contract only orders me to kill him if you don't cooperate. I may be a werewolf hunter, but I keep up my end of the bargain, he said leisurely with a shrug of his shoulders. Tell your partner to get out of the tree, and then I'll go with you, my mother instructed him. Why was she going so easily without resisting? Dad wouldn't have wanted her to spare his life over hers. Fine. He gestured his head and his partner jumped from the tree and jogged his way over. I stayed low in the bush to make sure no one saw me. Was this how she was taken? No struggle, no fighting, no yelling or screaming, or crying. She just went as long they promised not to hurt Dad. Well? Come on then, he told her and made a path for her. Mom went willingly and followed after them. She stopped just before the border of the pack lands and looked back towards the pack house. I followed her line of sight and saw that she was looking at my father's office. But then, her focus shifted, and I saw that she was looking at the corner of their room where I would be sleeping. I turned back to face them and saw that she was getting ready to step over the boundary of the territory. This would alert everyone in the pack that someone left the pack lands without permission. I had to stop her. I had to stop her from leaving. I couldn't let Kellen have his way. I jumped out from the bush and used my super speed to reach her. Stop! I screamed. Mom! Don't go with them! I screamed even louder and ran as fast as I could but realized that I wasn't running at full speed. I was running like a normal human. I kept pushing myself to get to her and screaming for her not to go, but it was as if she couldn't hear me. Why couldn't she hear me? When I got to the border to follow after her, I literally ran into a wall. I fell backward and got up to try again, but was met with an invisible barrier. I banged on it. Mom! Mom! Come back! I screamed and kept hitting the wall with my fist. I tried to tap into my super strength, but even that was useless. I felt so weak. My strength was that of a mere mortal. What is happening with my abilities? I shouted and kept hitting whatever this wall was, only to see my mother disappear from my line of sight. No! I screamed and cried. Mom! I couldn't stop her. I couldn't save her. Why couldn't I save her? I was furious. Why would I be sent to the past to be shown all of this if I weren't meant to stop it? Ugh! I grunted in pure anger. I wanted to let Callie out to see if she could break down the wall, but then I realized that I couldn't sense her. I was shocked and confused. Why hadn't I noticed that my wolf was no longer with me? What the hell? What is going on? This isn't your time. Ah! I screamed when I heard an unfamiliar voice behind me. I turned around to see a woman with white hair and silver eyes wearing a gown that shimmered like diamonds. Who the foo? Finish that sentence and I'll WKL Thornwood that mouth out with soap, she stated harshly, causing me to hold my tongue. Who are you? I asked again, only without the profanity. Who do you think? She asked back and smiled. My eyes widened in horror and dismay. You're. Why Yuri? Call me Selene, Sarin. Chapter 51. Sarin's P.O.V. I couldn't shake the sense of impending doom that now consumed me. At this point, I had more questions than answers. I couldn't believe this was happening to me, and I sure as hell didn't understand why either. What were the odds that Alexa and that weird, white light would transport me back in time, only for me to witness my mother hand herself over to Kellen just to protect my dad, and me? And to top it all off, the moon goddess was standing here before me. Why are you here? I asked her respectfully. I should be asking you the same thing, Ryan, she responded vaguely. Gah, please, don't call me that. I hate the name, Ryan. I exclaimed, covering my ears dramatically. She giggled at me and shook her head. Fine, Sarin, she corrected. Why are you here? I have no earthly idea. This is all Alexa's doing. Ah, I see. It appears that my daughter has tapped into her powers of time travel. I must have misheard her because there was no way she said what I thought she did. Wait, did you just say time travel? Yes, and it appears that she has sent you back in time to the moment that seems to be haunting you the most. Though, I'm wondering why it's not the day when your parents were killed. While that was a fair question to ask, the answer was simple: that day didn't haunt me. I already came to terms with the fact that Kellen killed my parents and used an alpha's challenge to conceal premeditated murder. I remember that day clearly, at least, what I was able to witness. This day in question was what haunted me, and it was because I had so many unanswered questions. This night haunts me, Moon God. Selene, please, she cut me off. Selene, this night haunts me the most because I literally have no idea how it happened. All I know is what I've been told by Ronan and Grace, and what Marvin told me before I killed him. How could my mother, a Luna of a strong pack like Silver Lake, just get kidnapped? I guess I know now, she went willingly. Why do you think that is, Sarin? Selene asked. To protect my father. And me, from what I can tell. Exactly. Your mother sacrificed herself to keep those she loved the most protected at all costs. And that didn't just include you and Gideon. It included all of the pack members. What? It's as you said, child, your mother is a powerful Luna, and an alpha wolf by blood. It's in her nature to be protective of those who rely on her, and that doesn't only extend to her mate and child. All of Silver Lake would have been attacked had she not gone with them. They were attacked anyway. I screamed. Kellen came back and finished the job. He used an official challenge to conceal murder. The murder of my family and my pack. I continued with tears welling in my eyes. I know, sweet girl. I'm sorry that I couldn't stop it. Couldn't or wouldn't. I seethed. Do not talk to me that way, Sarin. I couldn't. As the goddess of all werewolves, I cannot intervene in such personal matters. I cannot take sides. Take sides? Is that what you think this is? Taking sides? My parents were murdered. My entire pack was slaughtered. My home, destroyed. On top of that, Kellen took me in and ruined my life. I'd probably be a rogue right about now, instead of the Luna I am, had Jasper not found me that night. I know, and I'm so incredibly sorry for what happened to you, Sarin. But everything in life happens for a reason. You survived that night because your parents knew that you would go on to do great things. Your parents had the foresight to know that Kellen was going to eventually retaliate because of his obsession for your mother, and hid you away in the one place where you wouldn't be discovered. Not until you were supposed to be. What are you saying? What do you mean by supposed to be? I asked her. Apparently, there was more to this than she let on. Sarin, Kellen did not find you by accident. What? I replied in disbelief. She simply gave me a knowing look. Oh my goddess, you led him to me? You showed him where I was. I had to, Sarin, she said gently, her voice so soft it sounded like a whisper. Why? Do you have even the slightest clue as to what he did to me? What he turned my life into? Of course, I do. Why wouldn't I know? I'm sorry that happened to you, it is beyond tragic what you had to endure, but I needed you to survive. I needed you to live, to turn into who you were meant to be. I needed you to live so that you could one day unite with Alexa and Xandra. I could barely even comprehend the rest of Selini's explanation as I was unable to stop the rising anger coursing through my entire body, hearing her admit that she was the reason Kellen found me that night beneath all of the rubble. Sarin, do you not understand that had I left you alone as a child and not shown Kellen where you were hidden, you never would have survived the night? I furrowed my brows at her. Child, had you not gone with Kellen that night, rogues passing by would have killed you. You were all but 10 years old. You would have been decimated. My face relaxed hearing that. I didn't think about that, I admitted and sighed in defeat. I'm sorry. Don't be, Sarin. I know what you went through. I had to witness it firsthand every day until the day Jasper found you. I just nodded my head but stayed silent for a moment. I took a quick glance at her before asking my next question a little more calmly. Selini, when you said this isn't my time, what did you mean? I asked. What I meant to say was that this isn't your time in life. At this precise moment, you are merely a toddler. You don't have your powers or super abilities. You're in the life of your 2-year-old self. Why couldn't I stop her from leaving? I asked, referencing my mother. Because you weren't supposed to. You're here to get answers, not change the past. You cannot change what has already happened. Why am I here then? I threw my arms up and slammed them down to my side all dramatically. As I said, this is Alexa's doing, and I think her conversation with Riker was the trigger. Her consternation of Kellen being a murderous monster put so much fear into her, it awoke her power. Are you saying that Alexa can send just people back in time? Only those with unanswered questions. How do I get out of this? How do I get back to Jasper? You will be sent back once everyone finishes their journey. Everyone? Who else did Alexa send back? Herself, Xandra, and William. William? What unanswered questions does he have? He can see the past and future. William is a unique case. And if you want to know what he is questioning, then you will have to ask him yourself. I just scoffed. Until then, be mindful about where you go and who you talk to. Being seen won't affect the timeline much, but saying the wrong thing to the wrong person might. Even though you can't purposefully change past events that have already occurred, you can cause a rift. Even the smallest ripple in time can cause damage to your present. And not just yours, everyone's. Can I see my father? You can. You can even tell him who you are, but you cannot, under any circumstance, warn him about the challenge that is to come, Sarin. He cannot know that it's a setup by Kellen. Tears immediately started to form in my eyes when she said that. You said that I couldn't change events that have already happened. The challenge hasn't happened yet. I can save my family. But it has happened already, Sarin. It has. Even if you were to warn him, he would still accept the challenge from Kellen because as an alpha, it is not in his nature to reject it, or in any alpha's nature. He will still die because his life story was written long ago, just like yours was. I dropped my head and wept. I felt her embrace me and hold me close. She was so warm and comforting. I could feel the warmth of the moon from her. I'm so sorry for what you have been through, child. And I apologize that I didn't come to you sooner. You show yourself to Allie all the time. Allie needs a lot of guidance. It's not easy being a human all of your life and suddenly finding yourself mated to a supernatural. And not just any supernatural, an alpha wolf like Dorian, resulting in her being turned into a werewolf and becoming a Luna. Allie is a work in progress. She has a good heart and has a lot of love to give, but only gives it to those she deems worthy. Allie's ability to sense souls is both a blessing and a curse, and she doesn't realize that she uses it only for her benefit. She needs a lot of guidance and she also needs a lot of healing. Ali has so much pain and anger in her and she refuses to let it go. She may confront those who hurt her, but she doesn't show any of the pain. She's a broken spirit, even if she doesn't seem like it. She constantly lives in fear, and even though her bond with Dorian is strong, and she loves him with everything she has, the poor thing still has yet to let go of the fear that Dorian will one day leave her. I don't mean by him rejecting her either. Ali fears that Dorian is all but a figment of her imagination. Or that she will wake up to a phone call that Dorian has died. Ali shields herself behind her anger, which is why she is always screaming when she is worked up. It's the only thing she knows to shield herself from emotional pain. You, however, don't need as much guidance or healing. You're a natural Luna and you were born a wolf. You found your healing when you and Jasper fixed your bond. That made you whole again. And the fact that you chose a moment in time you only learned of recently, and not the most eventful night of your life, shows that you have healed and come to terms with your family's death. You don't need to change the past because you know that it had to happen. You knew deep down what kind of Luna you were going to be and needed to be. You're a smart girl, Sarin, and you know that. You act innocent with Jasper because he's your mate, but deep down, you're a feisty spitball of fire, attitude, and more courage and strength than most. But this past year was a learning experience for both you and Jasper. It's why I had to show myself to him first. He needed a push in the right direction. I nodded my head while leaning on her shoulder. Sarin, you don't need me. You never have. But when I saw where you were, I knew I had to come see you before you made a grave mistake, she said while gently pushing me away so I could face her. The tears kept falling down my cheeks as she tenderly wiped them away. She looked me in the eyes, making sure I understood what she meant. I closed my eyes and nodded my head in understanding. I couldn't change the past. If I showed myself to my father, I can't warn him about the challenge to come in 8 years' time. I had to let go of the fact that my parents were meant to die, and there was nothing I could do about it. This s.ux, I sobbed, making her chuckle. You're going to be fine, Sarin, and you will have a chance to avenge your parents. I gasped as I looked up, but she was gone. I scoffed at her disappearing on me like that. But then I remembered what everyone else who had met her had said: she was known to pop up on a whim and then vanish into thin air. I began to hear voices coming from inside of the pack house and realized that it was my father. He must have discovered that my mother was missing and was sending out the warriors to search for her. Even though Selene said it was okay for people to see, I didn't want the warriors to find me. They would think I was an intruder, so I hid again behind the bush and waited. Xandra's POV. After being temporarily blinded by the white light that FLK Thornwood does all, I hid into Griffin's C.Hest only to find that was somewhere else entirely, and without him. Instead, I was met with Alexa's confused face with her staring at me like I was some alien. She was back to normal too. Lex, what the hell? I shouted, giving her a once-over. What? She asked, completely oblivious. I looked at her. Lex, you fainted and your hair was all white and SHT. And then, this symbol formed on your forehead, and UFLKL Thornwood de bright, white light at all of us. What are you talking about, Xandra? She asked me as if I was speaking in a different language. I just gawked at her. Did she really not remember what happened? Where's Riker? She asked while looking around. Where the hell are we? I should be asking you that, Alexa. I exclaimed, finally taking a moment to observe our surroundings. This is your fault. I said, pointing between her and me and then to the room that we were in. I don't know what you're talking about, Xandra. I was just talking to Riker, then I had this massive headache, and now I'm here, with you, wherever the hell here is, she replied while signaling with her hands and arms to highlight the fact that we were in unknown territory. This place doesn't seem familiar to me, I told her as I looked around again. We were inside of a room, more like an office, that we had never seen before. It was fully furnished and humongous, but the scent that was the office was covered in wasn't one that either of us recognized. Alexa looked as if she wanted to say something, but then we heard a voice outside of the door. We both hid in the closet as quickly as we could. As soon as we closed the door, someone opened the door to the room that we were inside of. Alexa held up her finger to her LPS and I nodded my head. Kellen, are you certain that you want to challenge the Silver Lake Alpha? A familiar voice asked. I looked at Alexa and moved my head to the side, hearing it. It couldn't be. I wouldn't have to, had you not let Megan go in the first place 7 years ago, Marvin. My eye widened in horror and so did hers. Our birth father and our captor were both here. I quickly mind-linked Alexa. Lex, how can Marvin be out there? Sarin killed him. But did you hear what he said? About challenging the Silver Lake Alpha. That's Sarin's old pack. How can this be possible? Alexa, what the hell did you do? Where did your stupid white light send us? Again, with the white light SHT. I have no idea what you're talking about, Xandra. But if I had to wager a guess, I think we're in the past. Kellen said something about Marvin letting Mom go 7 years ago. How the hell did you send us to the past? Stop blaming me. I didn't do SHT. I rolled my eyes at her and decided to let it go for now. Alexa was right though, we had to be in the past. We kept as quiet as possible and continued to listen to them. I had to let her go. You left without a trace after the Dark Witch transferred the souls that you stole from the Lunar Kingdom. Once she gave birth, I had no use for her. But I did. You sending her back to that piece of SHT, Gideon, ruined everything for me. I had her. I had my Megan. Your Megan? Marvin questioned. So, that's what all this is about? You chose her because you love her. You didn't just pick her because she was a strong Luna. You wanted her for yourself. You're sick and deranged. You kidnapped her for your own sick fantasies, impregnated her, and then just left. I had to leave. Nicole was getting suspicious of me being away constantly. I couldn't have her finding out I was with Megan, let alone with her. Her jealousy of Megan knows no bounds, and she wouldn't hesitate to try and kill her. You were just with her, you sick. She enjoyed it. You do realize that a woman's body can still climax when enough pressure is placed on there? It doesn't mean that she enjoyed it. Besides, you said Luna Megan was powerful. That's why I said try, Nicole is low level. She wouldn't stand a chance against Megan even if Megan wasn't at her best, Kellen answered. Alexa and I were both standing in the closet with our mouths hanging wide open. What do you plan on doing with the Silver Lake Alpha? Marvin asked. What do you think? I'm going to kill him. I can't confront him head-on though, his pack would destroy mine. But if I challenge him one-on-one, I could use the challenge as a way to kill him, claim Megan, and then get rid of Nicole and those good-for-nothing kids of mine. You say good-for-nothing, yet your son is the future alpha to this pack. Not if Megan and I have a son of our own. Tell me then, how exactly do you plan on killing an alpha wolf as strong as Gideon Calloway? Simple, Kellen said and paused. We heard a drawer being opened and closed. What is that? Marvin asked. This, my friend, is a poison called dimethylmercury. Where Spot did you get that? Marvin asked. He sounded scared. I furrowed my brows at Alexa. I don't think we ever heard Marvin sound scared before. That's for me to know, and for you to never find out. 1 drop of this into a wolf's bloodstream, and they can die within 24 hours. But an entire syringe full will kill a grown werewolf in a matter of minutes. Plunge it into the heart of a wolf, they die instantly. Alexa and I both covered our mouths as fast as we could to prevent ourselves from gasping out loud. You're insane. If that gets on you, you'll be exposed too. Marvin exclaimed. Don't you worry about that. I'll be wearing protective gloves, and my clothes will be cloaked with dark magic to keep it from seeping in. Gideon Calloway may be stronger than me when it comes to brute strength, but he will never survive this. You're one psychotic, you know that, Kellen. You just figured that out. Kellen replied with what sounded like amusement in his voice. Megan will be mine again. And what if she doesn't come willingly? Are you going to have her kidnapped again? No. If Megan chooses to go against me, then I'll kill her too. If I can't have her, no one ever will. I won't let her live to find a second chance mate. Even if those chances are slim to none. I will not allow her to give birth to anyone else's pups but my own. She already had a pup with her mate, you fool. Rumor has it she had a boy. Actually, I heard that the child isn't theirs. That they adopted because she couldn't conceive. That just means that she was never meant to have that pups. The moon goddess made a grave mistake. Megan should have been my chosen Luna after I rejected my first mate. But, no, she went and mated her to Gideon, and at Ronan's alpha ceremony of all the days. Ronan. The alpha of Blue Lake. Ah, that Ronan. Alexa and I gawked again. Marvin knew about Ronan and Blue Lake long before we had ever escaped. It was no wonder he was able to find us so easily. The room was silent for a minute before Kellen spoke again. Marvin, you got what you wanted from me. I gave you the pups that you asked for, so now you owe me. What do you want from me? Marvin asked, sounding intrigued. Keep the girls until they gain their wolves. Sell them to me when they become of age. I already told you, I already have another buyer. Well, too bad. Those are my children, and I will not have you selling them to some money-hungry werewolf trafficker. I'll double the amount he's offering. When they turn 18, I will meet you at a rendezvous point, and you will sell them to me. But do not tell them that they're being sold their birth father. And if you don't, I have plenty more of where this came from. I won't hesitate to use it on you. We could only assume he was talking about that crazy poison. You know that? Of course, I do. Fine. I'll keep the girls alive for you and sell them back 2 weeks after they turn 18. I'll contact you with a meeting spot, Marvin responded. We heard the door being opened, but then heard Kellen's voice again. If you ever consider betraying me, Marvin, I won't hesitate to kill you. Marvin didn't say anything, and the door closed. Alexa and I were mortified at everything we had heard. Sarin had told us that Kellen faked a challenge to kill her father, and we had always wondered how, but we never would have imagined he used poison. After a minute or two, we heard the door open and close again. We waited to see if someone had come in, but we heard nothing. I think he's gone, Alexa whispered. I nodded, and slowly turned the knob. I peeked around and saw no one. We came out carefully and just stared at one another. I can't believe what we just heard, I told Alexa and all she did was nod. We have to tell Sarin. How? We don't even know how to get back, Alexa answered. She had a good point. How the hell were we supposed to get back? Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.